Today, we're exploring something pretty fundamental, something happening, well, everywhere, all the time, often without us even noticing it.
Right. How plants are formed.
How plants are formed. We've got the material you sent over, and we're set to unpack this incredible journey.
From a tiny, almost invisible start, really, to these organisms that, support almost all life on Earth.
It's quite a story packed into every leaf, every stem.
It really is.
So, our mission for this deep dive is to really get a handle on that process. Not just the basics, maybe, but some of the fascinating details, the adaptations our sources highlighted.
And like a lot of big stories, this one starts small.
Very small.
It begins with the seed.
Okay, the seed. Let's really open that up. Our notes call it nature's time capsule. What makes it such a perfect little package,
Oh, yeah.
able to wait, sometimes for years.
Yeah, the source material lays it out nicely. Inside that tough outer coat, you've got this amazing little kit.
Okay.
There's the plant embryo itself,
Yeah.
basically the blueprint, the tiny plant to be.
The core of it.
Exactly.
Right.
And crucially, it has its own food reserve, like a packed lunch.
Ah, okay.
Enough energy to get it started before it can, make its own food. And then the protective coat around it all. It's this self-contained survival pod.
It's just amazing that all that potential is packed in there, often so tiny. And these little powerhouses, where do they originate? The sources talk about the classic
Right.
process.
For flowering plants, it's basically plant sex, isn't it? Sexual reproduction.
Huh. Yeah.
You have pollen, which is the male genetic stuff, moving from the stamen over to the pistil, the female part.
That's pollination.
That's pollination. Then fertilization happens inside the ovule within the flower. And that fertilized ovule, that develops into the seed we're talking about.
Simple biology, but it leads to just incredible variety. The course has really hammered home the diversity of seeds.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the range. You've got giant coconuts, right? Clearly built to float on water.
Hmm.
Then you have orchid seeds, which are like dust, so tiny they just drift on the air, or maybe even need fungi to help them get around.
Wow.
The material really showed how this variety isn't just for looks, it's completely tied to how they survive and spread.
And speaking of spread, dispersal was a big focus in the notes. It's not just falling off the plant, it's like an active strategy.
Definitely. You see all sorts of clever adaptations, like for wind dispersal. Think dandelions or thistles. Those feathery bits catch the breeze.
And off they go. Miles, potentially.
Potentially miles, yeah. Or seeds built for water, like lotus seeds. Our notes mention they can float for ages, sometimes stay viable for years.
Incredible longevity.
And then there are the hitchhikers, my favorite.
Ah, yes, the ones you find later.
Exactly. The sources mention seeds with hooks, little barbs, sticky stuff, all designed to grab onto animal fur.
Or, as the notes dryly put it, your socks after a hike.
Precisely. You become an accidental taxi service for seeds.
It's such a simple idea, but so effective for getting plants into new areas, ensuring they don't just crowd around the parent.
It is. They've really mastered getting around, haven't they?
So, okay, you've got this little time capsule. It's maybe traveled far, it lands somewhere, conditions turn favorable. What happens then? What flips the switch?
That moment is germination. The seed wakes up, basically, goes from dormant to active growth.
And the sources listed the usual triggers.
Yeah, typically needs water, a certain amount of warmth, and oxygen.
But it's not always just that simple combo, is it? Sometimes it needs a specific cue, like the notes mentioned freezing, or even fire for some plants adapted to that.
Exactly right. Can be quite specific. But when the conditions are right, the seed starts taking up water that's called imbibition.
Imbibition, okay.
That water softens the coat, hydrates everything inside, and basically tells the embryo, okay, time to go. It switches the cellular machinery back on.
Like an alarm clock finally going off, and what's the
Mhm.
very first thing we see?
The radicle. That's the embryonic root. It's usually the first part to break out, and it pushes downwards into the soil.
Job number one.
Anchorage. And it's starting to suck up water and minerals right away. Got to get that root system going, otherwise it won't make it.
Build the foundation first, makes
Yeah.
sense. And then comes the part we usually notice breaking through the soil surface.
That would be the plumule, the embryonic shoot. It grows upwards towards the light. It carries the first tiny leaves or the structures that will become leaves.
And once that plumule hits the sunlight,
Yeah.
that's when things really kick into high gear, right? Sunlight changes everything.
Oh, absolutely. Because once leaves are exposed to light, the plant can fire up its most amazing trick, photosynthesis.
The sources called it the plant's superpower.
And it really is. It's the core of everything.
We sort of know the basics. Light, water, CO2 go in, sugar and oxygen come out. But the material we looked at really emphasized the sheer scale and efficiency.
It did. Photosynthesis is, well, it's fundamentally converting light energy into chemical energy glucose, basically sugar, using chlorophyll to capture that sunlight,
The green stuff.
the green stuff. And the raw materials are just water from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air. What's kind of mind-blowing, as the sources point out, is that plants are pretty much the only things that can do this massive scale energy creation just using sunlight.
Just stop and think about that. The whole living world pretty much runs on energy plants captured from the sun, directly or indirectly.
Exactly. And the byproduct, oxygen, which, most other life forms kind of need.
Just a minor detail.
Yeah. It's the planet's foundational green chemistry. Every leaf, root, fruit, it all starts with harnessing the sun.
So the plant has sprouted, it's making its own food through photosynthesis. How does it build itself up? How does it become the structure we recognize? A tree or a flower. What do the different parts do?
Right. As it matures, the different parts specialize. They develop specific jobs that work together. The roots, they keep growing, branching out, digging deeper.
Forming that network.
Forming the network, exactly. Anchoring the plant really well, but also maximizing the surface area to pull in water and those dissolved minerals from the soil.
A hidden half doing vital work.
Totally. Then above ground, you've got the stem. Its main job is support, right? Holding the leaves up to catch the light.
Makes sense.
But it's also the highway. It contains the vascular tissues, xylem and phloem moving water and minerals up from the roots, and distributing the sugars made in the leaves down to where they're needed for growth, storage, whatever.
Like plumbing and delivery routes combined. And the leaves themselves, they look perfectly designed for catching light.
They really are. They're the main photosynthesis factories, usually flat and broad to get maximum sun exposure.
Maximize the solar panels.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that shape also helps with gas exchange, taking in CO2, releasing oxygen and water vapor through tiny little pores called stomata.
Stomata. Okay, and the sources also stressed how much variation there is in plant structure. It's not one size fits all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a huge story of adaptation. Think about, say, a giant redwood tree, built
Yeah.
tall and strong to compete for light in a crowded forest,
Right.
versus maybe a little succulent in the desert. Low to the ground, storing water, minimizing surface area to reduce water loss.
Completely different strategies.
Totally different. The materials showed how these forms are evolutionary answers to different environmental challenges, surviving in all sorts of places.
So the plant grows, it gets established, masters photosynthesis. Now it needs to think about the next generation. How does it close the loop? Start the cycle over again?
Reproduction, that's the key. And for many plants, that means flowers.
Towers.
Flowers are the reproductive centers. They've got the male parts, stamens making pollen, and the female parts, the pistil with the ovules inside.
And they often need help getting the pollen from A to B, right? The sources mention pollinators quite a bit.
Oh yeah, pollinators are crucial. Bees, butterflies, birds, even bats in some cases, or just the wind or water sometimes.
They're carrying the pollen between flowers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Facilitating that fertilization step, which then leads to the ovules developing into seeds and the ovary around them often becoming a fruit.
And the fruit helps protect or disperse those new seeds, bringing us right back around.
The cycle continues. Though it's worth mentioning, as the sources did, that seeds aren't the only way plants reproduce.
Ah, right. There are other methods.
Yes, asexual reproduction. Basically making clones.
Right.
Well, think about taking cuttings. A piece of stem can grow roots and become a whole new plant. Or runners, like strawberries send out. Those create new little plantlets.
Okay.
Or bulbs, like onions. Or tubers, like potatoes. Those are stored structures that can sprout entirely new plants that are genetically identical to the parent.
Different strategies for different situations, I guess. Faster, maybe, or more reliable if conditions for seeds aren't great.
Exactly. It just shows how flexible and, well, resilient plants are in making sure they continue their lineage.
Resilience definitely seems to be a theme here.
For sure.
So thinking about that resilience, let's zoom out one last time. Beyond just how one plant lives and reproduces, what's the bigger picture? The sources were really clear about how fundamental plants are to, well, everything.
They really are. I mean, fundamentally, they're the base of almost every food web on land.
Primary producers.
Primary producers. They take sunlight, turn it into energy. Herbivores eat them. Carnivores eat herbivores. Without that first step by plants, the whole system collapses.
And the oxygen thing we mentioned earlier, kind of essential.
Absolutely vital for us and most animals. But it goes way beyond food and oxygen, as the source is detailed. They provide habitats, places for insects, birds, mammals to live, nest, hide.
Shelter.
They
Yeah.
hold soil together, preventing erosion. They influence local climate through releasing water vapor transpiration. And think of all the things we use them for.
Yeah.
Medicines, wood for building, fibers for clothes, fuel. The list is endless.
It really drives home that point. Earth as we know it, this living, breathing planet, is built on the quiet, constant work of plants.
They're the silent architects, really.
Okay.
And they thrive in such incredible ways, adapting to deserts, mountaintops, deep forests. Their ability to just persist is amazing.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've gone from the tiny potential locked in a seed through its awakening, its growth, that incredible alchemy of photosynthesis, building structures, reproducing, all the way to their massive role in the whole ecosystem.
It makes you realize that even, a weed pushing through a crack in the pavement is doing something incredibly complex and vital. It's the result of millions of years of evolution.
Yeah. Maybe next time you see a plant, any plant, tree, flower, grass, whatever, it's worth just pausing for a second. Thinking about that journey we discussed. The power in the seed, capturing sunlight, making the air, the hidden roots, that quiet push towards the light.
The sources kept coming back to that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Resilience, adaptation, and this kind of silent strength. It's easy to just see them as background greenery.
But maybe we shouldn't. It makes you think, doesn't it? About how much quiet power is constantly at work, driving so much of the life around us.
Definitely something to reflect on.